Financial Planner. Follow us on YouTube.
Going, desperation has set in. The cabal is pushing all agendas. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like the cabal, they're going full steam ahead with all their agendas. They have nothing left, so they're going all out. Now, of course, we know that Mueller came out and he issued these indictments against Paul Manafort, Gates, and Papadopoulos. And we can see right now that there's also letters of or articles of impeachment against Trump that are already within the government. And we see that there are more individuals like Representative Luis Gutierrez. He is out there saying that he's going to be creating another article of impeachment. And he really didn't specify the timeline. He also didn't say how or why or what the grounds are for the articles of impeachment. He's not really explaining it because at this point, what are the grounds for article impeachment against Trump? What has he done that he deserves to be impeached right now? Well, not much. That's why it hasn't gone anywhere. But they're going to keep throwing all of this stuff at Trump because they have nothing left. The Russian collusion thing completely fell apart. Even though they have indictments against Manafort, it has nothing to do with Russian collusion. Yes, I know the corporate media is playing it up. They're going to be pushing it as hard as they possibly can, because think about it. Go back in time when they were telling everyone about the Russian collusion, how they have all this evidence, they have the investigative team, they're looking into it, they have all this information, and it turned out to be, what? Oh, that's right, nothing. The same thing is happening once again. They're throwing everything at it all at once to try to convince everyone that they have something, but it's not going to work right now. And as we can see, things are rapidly falling apart for the cabal, and they need to push every single agenda right now or they are completely done. Pretty soon they're going to be on the run. And we're going to see investigators, we're going to see Senate hearings, we're going to see all this happen against all these individuals, and they know this. If they don't do anything at this point, they are going to be caught up in this. And even these articles of impeachment, this has to go through a lengthy process. I mean, it has to go to the House Judiciary Committees. They have to vote on it. If that passes, it has to go to the House of Representatives. If that passes, then it has to be brought to the Senate, and then it has to go to the Senate, and then the senators have to inform the president. They have to write the bill of indictment, and then they have to go to trial. So this is not like, oh, let's file the articles of impeachment, and tomorrow he's impeached. This is a long, drawn-out process, and it's really for publicity right now to make it look really good, like he's getting impeached. But you can see all the other articles of impeachment, they're just sitting there. They haven't gone anywhere, because there's nothing behind it. There's no grounds. And of course, what they're doing is they're working with constitutional lawyers to try to dig up something, because they have nothing. And when you have nothing, you have to keep digging and digging and digging to find one little tiny thing. And even if they find the one little tiny thing, it's not really going to make a difference, because if you have to dig that hard, there's a problem. We see out in the UK, Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has conceded that there is no evidence of Russia has ever sought to interfere with the British votes. Now, think about it. The whole hacking of the election system here in the United States, that was fake, phony, and false. Out in the UK, the same thing. Fake, phony, and false. All of this is falling apart very, very quickly. And the cabal is in trouble. And the only way out of all of this is either to run and hide and just say, okay, we're gone. But as we know, they never give up. They work very, very hard throughout all these years to set up what they have. They're not just going to give it up. They rather blow it up than give it up. And this is what we need to be nervous about. We see there was a new survey by the Cato Institute. And the survey was the Cato 2017 Free Speech and Tolerance Survey. And they polled around 2,300 U.S. adults, and 71% of Americans believe that the political correctness has silenced important discussions our society needs to have. Now, the reason for political correctness is to control your speech, to control what you say. And this is what the establishment, the cabal, the deep state uses to control people, because once they can control what you say, you no longer have free speech. If anyone has seen The Giver, you'll know that there was a precision of language where you couldn't say certain words, or certain words meant something else, and they controlled exactly what you did. This is what they were trying to do here with political correctness. Yes, it sounds great on the surface. Oh, we have to be correct. We can't hurt people's feelings. We can't say that word, this word. And what happens is people become afraid to speak. And that's what they wanted. They wanted everyone scared to say anything, because they wanted the population to come down on those people who were speaking freely, saying that is not correct. So we see right now, what people are feeling right now is they really can't have a discussion because of this political correctness. And I agree with this. Free speech is free speech. If you don't like it, well, don't listen. That's how it works. You can't tell someone what to say or what not to say, because everyone has a different stance on it, and whose stance is right. And this is the problem, and this is why when they said everyone has the right to free speech, you can pretty much say anything. Doesn't mean that other people have to listen. Doesn't mean what you're saying is nice. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It means that you have the right to speak your mind. Out in North Korea, what are we seeing? Well, there was a high-level North Korean defector, and he's saying that Americans should bring change peacefully by talking to North Korea. This person said we should start from the basic concepts of human rights and freedom, and he said not railing against the Kim dictatorship and communism. And once again, yes, we need to have dialogue. Now, South Korea is doing something very interesting. President Moon Jae-in is saying, listen, we don't want nuclear weapons. We don't care what the North is doing right now if they're testing nuclear weapons, because President Moon Jae-in, he understands that Kim Jong-un is protecting his country against regime change. Everyone is not in the dark here. People know what's going on. Russia knows, China knows, Duterte knows from the Philippines. Everyone knows what the cabal does. They go into countries and they remove those in government and replace them. If you have nuclear weapons, guess what? It's very tough to do. And most of the time, it's not done at all. So we can see right now, South Korea is saying, listen, we're not buying into this. We don't want nuclear weapons. We don't want to start a nuclear race between the North and the South. And we're opting out, which I believe is the right thing to do at this point. And hopefully, the peace talks can continue, because that's what's happening behind the scenes right now. They're talking about peace. They're working out a way to calm the situation down. Russia right now is rejecting the U.S. demands for changes in the Iran nuclear deal. And we need to remember that the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action is not going to be amended or renegotiated. Russia is a signatory and a co-guarantor of the JCPOA alongside its ally China. It is also a permanent member of the UN Security Council, whose agreement would be needed for any international sanctions on Iran. That means that without the Russians' agreement, the JCPOA cannot be changed or amended or renegotiated, and the UN Security Council cannot impose further international sanctions on Iran. So basically it's dead in the water. And I think what Trump's plan was to bring it up. He really didn't do anything with it, and pass it to Congress. Let the people decide. And again, Iran is not going to start a war. Iran is not trying to push terrorism across the world. It is the cabal that was doing all of this in all the Middle Eastern countries, striking fear here in the United States with terror, with mass shootings and everything else that we've been seeing. And all of this is starting to fall apart. We see the Iraqi armed forces, they resume their offensive to liberate the Syrian border, and they liberated new areas in the Al-Anbar governorate, and we can see that they're taking control of the border. And there is no co-border type of agreement with the Kurds. The Iraqi government is controlling the border, and they're not doing it with the Kurds whatsoever. Tillerson, he was testifying in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he said, listen, even if Iraq tells us to leave, the U.S. is not leaving Iraq. Well, isn't that an invasion then? Because if a country says, listen, we don't want your troops in our country anymore, I believe that country needs to leave. And we see right now, they're saying that, no, we are not leaving. Now, of course, this will be left up to Congress, because it's going to pass to Congress to make a decision. And the people are going to look at this and saying, okay, this country doesn't want us in there, but you're telling us that we have to say. And I think what's happening right now is all this stuff is being brought up to make it public. So people question it. People say, what's going on here? And it's passed to Congress. Now, it looks like a senior U.S. military commander in the operation against the Islamic State in Syria, he got slightly confused when asked about the exact number of U.S. troops in Syria. Now, remember they told us there's about 250 troops in Syria, or 500. They're bringing it up to 500. Well, it turns out there's around 4,000, which I'm going to say there's probably more like 9,000 or even a little bit more in Syria, controlling the Kurdish area, helping the Syrian Democratic Forces. And we see at this point that the time is coming that United States, the coalition forces, even the Syrian Democratic Forces, they're going to be asked to leave, or the Syrian Democratic Forces are going to be asked to integrate into the Syrian armed forces. And we're just weeks away from this, and I think this is coming very, very quickly, and the Cabal doesn't know what to do with this at this point. Now we see something happened in New York. It looks like there was another type of false flag incident. And remember, false flag doesn't mean that nobody dies. It doesn't mean that nobody gets hurt. It means that it was planned to make it look like it was coming from someplace else. And investigators from the FBI and the NYPD, they're probing the background of this 29-year-old suspect, Sayfullo Saipov, and he's taken into custody. He is not dead. Looks like he rented a truck and mowed down something like 8 people or so. And what we're seeing is that the FBI actually interrogated this individual. They knew who this individual was, like they always do. And we see Site Intelligence is involved with this. This is Rita Katz. And we know they're a propaganda outfit from Israel. And they're showing this phone that, look, weeks ahead of time, they showed the Islamic State symbol by New York, showing that they were ready to do something. Well, this could have come from anywhere. This is absolutely meaningless, but it looks really good, and people do believe it when they see it, because, you know, once they tell you what it is, your mind automatically goes into saying, oh my God, they planned this weeks in advance. Now, really? You had to plan this weeks in advance in renting a truck and just driving it into people. I don't know if this really takes that much planning. And again, this was done to scare everyone. Remember, out in Syria, the Islamic State, they are basically disappearing. And they're trying to convince us that they're still around, that they can still push their agenda of terror. Now, once again, the FBI interviewed this individual. This individual came into the country in 2010 under Obama's diversity visa program, and people are questioning this. Trump is out there saying we need to shut this down. And what's very interesting about this, during the whole Vegas shooting, there were no real photographs from people's phones. I mean, thousands and thousands of people were there. You know, everyone had a phone. People were always taking selfies and taking pictures, but there were no photos whatsoever, except the clear, beautiful photos from professional photographers. And it's amazing how clear their photos can be while an event like this is going on. But in this instance, it seems like there were photos of the individual and they were captured. So we see a couple things happening here right now where there's different levels of false flags, and we don't know who exactly put this one together, but what's very interesting is they were talking about gun control because guns were the problem during Vegas. Well, this was a truck. Shouldn't we have stricter truck rental rules or banning trucks on roads? I mean, think about it. We have two of the same things happening right now where individuals allegedly killed people, one with a gun, one with a truck. How come the truck's not responsible, but in the gun shooting, the gun is responsible? This makes no sense whatsoever. And this is how they have their double standards, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Now, what we're seeing at this point is that the cabal is pushing their agenda very hard, and I believe we're going to see many, many more events here coming up. We also have the FBI drill going on in King's Dominion in the amusement park. Another event could occur anywhere because they need a lot of distractions, because what is happening right now, as this Manafort indictment completely goes absolutely nowhere and others start to investigate the connections between Ukraine, the Clintons, the Uranium One deal, the Fusion GPS Trump dossier, and all this stuff, it's all going to lead to Podesta, Clinton, Obama, and the rest. They need as many distractions as they possibly can to distract everyone from what is happening. And these distractions are going to get bigger and bigger as we move along, because as we can see, they need the distractions not just for one agenda, but for many. First, they need it for the economy completely failing. The central banks, they are stuck. So they need something to cover this up. The cabal, they needed to cover up because there's so much corruption, there's so much stolen money. I mean, think about it. The Pentagon, they've just lost trillions and trillions of dollars. I think it's up to $21 trillion. They need this huge cover-up so no one even looks at what they've been doing. We know that Mueller most likely has been inside cleaning up a lot of the records, and they definitely don't want anyone looking into all these different agreements and all the different plans and all the different documents and all the deals that have been made over the past couple of years where they were selling this stuff to foreign governments, because this would be a huge problem and a lot of people would go to jail. And they rather blow things up and create distractions than to be dragged into some type of trial where they're put in front of the corporate media, where they have no choice but to broadcast this. The people of America are looking at these individuals saying, what just happened here? So they rather have some type of distraction. They rather push their agenda, and it looks like they're not going to stop. It looks like we're going to see a lot more of this as time goes on, as the cabal, their whole system starts to implode. They're going to push their agenda very hard.